What up? And welcome to another episode of What Are You Watching? The TV/film segment of the channel. Like you guys saw in the beginning, fresh off that Dune 2, starring Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya, of course, and a bunch of other great actors. But getting into the movie, a quick recap of just what happened in part 1, since it still plays heavy into part 2. Being that I just recently watched part 1, still pretty fresh in my mind. But long story short, the Atreides family, who are pretty well respected in the universe and have a long lineage, are sent to a planet, Arrakis, because even though it's mostly barren or desert, it does produce a certain spice that's highly renowned, useful for multiple things. And so this Harkonnen family has their hands all over it because, of course, they've been the beneficiaries and have come into power for being the biggest producers of said spice. And so when part 1 starts off, the Atreides family, for whatever reason at the time, is given control of the planet. And so, of course, Harkonnen family will be upset about this and decide to take things upon their own hands and carry out a little bit of revenge. And so Prince Paul Atreides and his mother are left to basically fend for themselves and have to basically hold up with the natives of the world, who were already at odds with Harkonnen, and so were somewhat able to find common ground. And so getting into part 2, before I even get into the story, I want to say a couple things that I did love about the movie, so that I don't beat you guys over the head with plot. But I love the world, the cinematography, the set design and costumes that were worn in the movie. Like I said, this is a desert world, and so the natives make great use of what they have, and their ingenuity is pretty dope to see. The beginning of the movie, they showed just how crucial water is to them, and they also show the multiple ways that they can harness it, which is pretty crazy. We see scenes with them harnessing water from dead bodies, which I thought was pretty useful. The music was great. Shout out to the sound effects people. Again, since the natives are under-equipped, a lot of hand-to-hand, close-quarter combat. So, to be honest, it was amazing. A lot of fast-paced combat, but it sounded great. Some of my favorite fighting scenes I've seen so far. That last duel was very well done. Loved it. And speaking of the natives' innovation, it was cool to see how they fight. And being out-resourced and out-equipped, they were still able to do a lot of damage when it came to fighting for the spice production. It was cool to see the other side of it, as in part 1, we saw it from the harnesses side, where they were actually trying to defend the machines that produced the spice. And so now in part 2, to actually see them taking on the machines that are trying to harness the spice, and thanks to the help of Paul and how much he's learned, in part 2, they're actually able to make some headway and actually put a dent in most of the production. And as far as relationships go when it comes to the movie, I thought there were a lot of important ones at play. There's a lot of big players behind the scenes trying to pull political strings and are trying to put themselves in the correct position to still be on top when the dust settles. And so it was always interesting to see those things because, of course, not everyone's aware of what's going on. And so there's a little bit of betrayal and master manipulating. There's some master puppeteers in this movie, specifically the witches. They let us know in part 1 that they've been pulling the strings for a long time, and that is very apparent, very, very apparent in part 2. To get into a little bit of the spoilers halfway and beyond of the movie, thought it was interesting the relationship between Paul's mother and her unborn daughter, Paul's sister, because listening to a child is a little interesting, to say the least, because you really don't know what a baby's interests are. But the fact that at this point, Paul's definitely stepping into his calling, I guess is the best way to put it. We do see that he has images of the future. And when he sees his sister, It is understandable that you should trust what they're saying, but again, being so young, it's wisdom way beyond their years. And I can't wait to see how that plays out in part 3. And last but not least, even though they're pitched as the stars, of course, I thought that the relationship between Paul and Zendaya's character Chani was very good for the movie. Because I would say that he's not really sure about what his role is when it comes to this battle, but I think Zendaya's character keeps him grounded. Chani kind of reinforces him that at the end of the day, he is a caring person and that he is trustworthy in the fact that he does want good for the people. We even saw that in part 1 with his father, rest in peace. But Paul also just wants from what we see, he just wants people to be comfortable in whatever space they're in. So, for what we know for now, House Atreides does seem noble. And so you definitely feel like Paul's cause is justified. And that's the reason why you see that people are so quick to follow him. And so many people were quick to follow him. And so to be honest, I gotta say I love the movie, man. I enjoyed it. Love where the story's going. Because like I said, even though there's a lot of things at play, I'm really just interested in seeing where Paul's character is going to go. It looks like he has the potential to have the world at his hands. And so I can't wait to see if he's actually going to grab it or try to set a new order of things so that there can be peace for everybody involved. But time will tell. It wasn't too long for part 2 to come out, so hopefully part 3 comes out pretty quick as well. And that's about it, man. Not too long, about 2 hours and 45 minutes. You don't really feel the time, but let me know what you guys thought about the movie. Whenever y'all can check it out. Peace.